In our headlines on this Tuesday afternoon, August 1st, here in South Korea. Torturous temperatures of the scorching summer continue to suffocate the country, with health authorities here renewing their calls for caution, especially among the elderly, with regard to outdoor activities. Meanwhile, President Yoon Suk-yeol, Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida, and US President Joe Biden are poised to meet at the US presidential retreat of Camp David on August 18th to address a host of mutual interests. Korea posts a trade surplus of $1.63 billion in July as the country's imports fall further than its exports for the second month in a row. Health authorities are calling on the public, especially the elderly here, to refrain from outdoor activities as the blistering summer heat looks to persist throughout this week. Our Lee Seung-jae starts us off.
The intense heat wave here in South Korea has continued for more than a week, and now the capital Seoul is forecast to reach a daytime high of 35 degrees Celsius on Tuesday, marking the highest temperature this summer. Daejeon is expected to reach 36 degrees Celsius, with Hwasun County in Jeollanam-do Province forecast to hit 37 degrees. While rain is expected to fall in some parts of the country, it won't be enough to quell the intense heat wave. And the prolonged heat wave has also turned deadly, as over a dozen people have died due to heat-related illness this summer. According to the official tally from the Korea Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, there have been at least 1,100 heat-related illness cases this year and at least 13 lives being lost this summer. The majority of those that have lost their lives due to the heat have been elderly farmers. It can be especially dangerous for farmers working inside greenhouses, as temperatures inside can get far higher than outside. For instance, with an outdoor temperature of 30 degrees Celsius, the temperature inside a greenhouse can reach 44 degrees. At the peak of the afternoon, with the outdoor temperature at 34 degrees, the reading inside the greenhouse can spike to 52 degrees. Experts warn that the elderly, who are slow to recognize symptoms, and those with underlying cardiovascular and cerebrovascular diseases may be particularly at risk and should refrain from outdoor work as much as possible between 12 noon and 5 p.m. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
And President Yoon Suk-yeol has vowed efforts to better protect public interests. Chairing a cabinet meeting earlier on this Tuesday, President Yoon pledged tangible financial support, particularly for farmers and small businesses hard hit by the torrential downpours. He also called for government inspections of underground parking lots, whose structures appear to have been compromised in the process of construction. And in response to the recent rallies by teachers, the President reiterated the need for a fresh framework of guidelines that safeguard the rights of the faculty as well as those of the student body within the learning environment to be effective from the second half of the school year. South Korea's top diplomat to the US has made special note of the venue of the upcoming trilateral talks among leaders of Seoul, Washington and Tokyo later this month. Our foreign affairs correspondent Bae Eun-jae covers his comments and more.
The upcoming trilateral summit between the leaders of South Korea, the U.S. and Japan, set to take place on August 18th, will be an opportunity to further strengthen cooperation between the three countries. That's according to South Korea's ambassador to the U.S., Cho Hyun-dong, who noted that the upcoming event will be the first summit to be held at Camp David since President Joe Biden took office. Speaking to reporters in Washington on Monday local time, he explained that the venue for the summit underscores the emphasis U.S. President Joe Biden places on the trilateral cooperation.
This shows how much President Biden thinks of his relationship with our presidents, as well as the relations between South Korea and the US, and the trilateral relations between South Korea, the US and Japan.
If the summit takes place, it will not only be the first visit to Camp David, the presidential country retreat, by a foreign leader since Biden took office, but it will also be the first since 2015, when former U.S. President Barack Obama was in office. The ambassador added that Seoul has been playing a leading role in developing the trilateral partnership, something that was made possible because of improved relations with Japan.
I believe improved relations between South Korea and Japan is what took the cooperation between South Korea, the US and Japan to a new level.
Another senior official also noted that officials from the three countries are discussing whether or not to hold a trilateral summit on a regular basis from now on, with the leaders will make the final decision. The official also added that the issue of Japan's plan to release wastewater from the Fukushima nuclear power plant is not on the agenda for the upcoming summit. 배은지, Arirang News.
And the U.S. has warned of additional sanctions against North Korea and Russia should the two countries be trading weapons. Now, this is according to U.S. State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller on Monday in response to questions about the Russian defense minister's visit to Pyongyang last week to mark the 70th anniversary of the Korean Armistice Agreement. While refraining from details, Miller claimed Washington would not hesitate in imposing further sanctions if deemed necessary. Now, these remarks also follow reports of Ukraine having intercepted North Korean rockets from a ship that was headed to Russia. Findings for July show Korea's trade balance in the black for the second month in a row as imports plunged deeper than exports. Our trade correspondent Moon Hae-ryun reports.
South Korea's trade balance was in the black for the second straight month last month on the back of rising auto exports and falling raw material prices. According to data released by the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy on Tuesday, the country's trade balance was over $1.6 billion in July, with exports coming to just over $50 billion and imports at over $48 billion. This surplus was largely due to import prices, which fell by more than 25% compared to the same month the year before. Prices for oil, gas and energy fell by over 46% on year across all three sectors, leading to the sharp decline in import prices. However, outbound shipments from South Korea fell by over 16% on year. The ministry attributed the decline to the base effect due to record high exports last July and the continued slump in semiconductor exports. Chip exports have been on a consecutive on-year decline for the past 12 months, with July's outbound shipments of semiconductors falling by 34% compared to last year. Falling oil prices have also led to the decline in the value of various petroleum products, which also contributed to the overall decrease in total export value. Meanwhile, exports across the auto industry, mechanical and household electronic goods sectors rose. Auto exports rose by 15% on year on the back of rising popularity of eco-friendly vehicles around the world and recorded the highest total value for the month of July. This is the 13th month in a row that auto exports have seen an on-year rise. Outbound shipments of materials to the United States for use in batteries for electric vehicles also rose significantly in line with the U.S. Inflation Reduction Act. In addition to South Korea's active response to the IRA and Chips and Science Act, its return to Japan's trade whitelist as of last month is expected to have a positive impact on the country's trade balance in the near future. The government also highlighted its high-level cooperation with major Middle Eastern countries such as the United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia as part of its trade policies. Moon Hae-ryun, Arirang News.
U.S. crude oil futures posted their highest on-month price surge in July since January 2022. According to Reuters on Monday local time, U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude soared some 16% last month, while Brent crude gained 14%. The rise comes amid concerns over global supplies in light of reduced output by OPEC+. Pundits are also linking the trend to growing expectations for a global economic recovery. In other news, Pope Francis has urged Russia to restore the Black Sea grain initiative amid fresh fears over global food security as wheat prices continue to rise. Our Yoon has more on these remarks and the broader repercussions of Russia's inaction.
Pope Francis on Sunday called for prayers for Russia to restore the grain shipments from Ukraine through the Black Sea initiative so that millions who suffer from hunger can be saved. Speaking after his weekly Angelus prayer at the Vatican, he said the destruction of the grain deal is a great offense against God because grain is his gift to feed humanity.
Let us not cease to pray for beleaguered Ukraine, where war is destroying everything, even grain. This is a great offense against God, because grain is his gift to feed humanity. I appeal to my brothers, the authorities of the Russian Federation, that the Black Sea Initiative may be restored and grain may be transported safely.
The Black Sea Grain Initiative that ensures Ukrainian grain can travel into international waters of the Black Sea, avoiding mined areas on land, was negotiated in July 2022 between Turkey, the UN, and Russia. Ukraine is known as the breadbasket of Europe, and the deal helped stave off worsening of global hunger and prevented a surge in food prices worldwide. The deal also allowed Ukraine to export grain from its seaports despite the ongoing war. But Russia decided to suspend the deal on July 17th, claiming that the part of the deal allowing Russian agricultural exports was being negatively affected by Western sanctions. On Monday, Ukrainian Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba held talks with his Croatian counterpart to discuss the possibility of using Croatian ports on the Danube and the Adriatic Sea for the export of Ukrainian grain. Restoring a route for Ukraine's grain exports is key to keeping down food prices worldwide and preventing millions from suffering hunger. The United Nations reported that supplies transported under the Black Sea Grain Initiative by the World Food Programme directly supported people in need, and that as of July 2023, the WFP procured 80% of its global wheat grain from Ukraine under the initiative. Meanwhile, Ukrainian officials said that on Monday, Russian ballistic missiles slammed into an apartment complex and a university building in President Volodymyr Zelensky's hometown, killing 6 people and wounding 75 others as the blasts trapped residents beneath rubble. Ian-jin, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, Pakistan is reeling from the aftermath of a brutal bomb blast this past Sunday that took more than 50 lives and injured some 200 as an Afghan branch of the militant group Islamic State claims responsibility. Arirang has the latest.
At least 54 people are dead in the town of Bajaur in northwestern Pakistan after a suicide bombing targeted a pro-Taliban party's election rally on Sunday. The death toll included at least 5 children and left around 200 wounded. Islamic State in Khorasan province on Monday local time claimed in a statement that they were responsible for the bombing.
I don't know what the cause was, but there was a sudden blast, and within moments, dozens of people were lying dead and injured on the ground.
When we reached the convention and heard speeches being delivered from the stage, we were standing to welcome our leaders when suddenly a blast occurred, and then we were not aware of ourselves.
Sunday's bombing was among the worst in northwestern Pakistan in the last decade. Around 400 members of the Jamiat Ulema-e-Islam Party, a key government coalition partner headed by hardline politician Fazlur Rahman, were waiting for speeches to begin when a bomber detonated an explosive vest near the stage. Rahman appears to have not attended the rally. Abdul Rashid, one of the party's senior leaders, said the bombing was aimed at weakening the party, but that, quote, such attacks cannot deter our resolve. Police had suggested in their initial investigation that Islamic State in Khorasan province was a suspect. The Pakistani Taliban, which some analysts have suggested as possible suspects, distanced itself from the attack. The country's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif called Rahman to express his condolences and made assurances that those who led the attack would be punished. Meanwhile, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres also strongly condemned the suicide bombing.
The Secretary General extends his heartfelt condolences to the families of the victims and wishes a prompt recovery to those injured. He calls on the Pakistani authorities to bring those responsible to justice.
The UN chief also denounced all instances of terrorism and attacks against civilians, adding that he stands in solidarity with the government and the people of Pakistan in combating the scourge. Lee Dae-hyun, Arirang News.
And on a light note now, the world's largest youth campaign, the World Scout Jamboree, is taking place here in Korea at Saemangeum, Jeollabuk-do Province. Some 43,000 teenagers from 158 countries are gathering for the event. Running from the 1st to the 12th of August, the camp has a diverse schedule of programs including global food tastings, temple stay experiences and a K-pop concert. It's the second time Korea is hosting this event, which is held every 4 years to promote friendship through youth cultural interactions. The event this time around also coincides with the 100th anniversary of the Korea Scout Association. The production of plant-based meat alternatives here in Korea requires imported ingredients, but now that is no longer necessary thanks to technology developed by researchers here. Our Chongunju explains.
Plant-based meat substitutes are plant-based proteins that are similar in taste and texture to actual meat. Simply put, they are meat-free meat dishes. Such alternatives have started to attract consumer attention by not only imitating meat, but also embodying the flavor and texture of the real thing. According to Euromonitor, a market research company, the South Korean meat substitute market was worth 8 billion won in 2019, but has been growing steadily and surpassed 20 billion won, or roughly $15 million last year. Soy protein isolate from soybeans is a key ingredient in making meat substitutes, but until now this could not be produced in South Korea, so manufacturers had to rely on imports. A South Korean research team, however, has recently developed a technology that may replace soy protein isolate by mixing starch, gluten, and flour made from a South Korean soybean variety called miso.
Meat substitutes are usually made from soy protein isolate. This study is significant as we discovered we can make meat alternatives with South Korean soybeans that haven't gone through the protein separation process.
The research team proved through testing that using local materials produces a softer texture than when using imported soy protein isolate. GMOs are also not detected in South Korean soybeans, increasing consumer safety.
Through this research, we expect domestic soybeans to be used in a variety of processed food ingredients that will greatly contribute to improving the self-sufficiency rate of South Korean soybeans.
The Rural Development Administration plans to continue developing soybean varieties suitable for meat alternatives and introduce new technology to the field. 정은주, Arirang News.
Let's take a look at what's going on in the world now. In Beijing, at least 2 people have died and over 30,000 have been evacuated amid major flooding and landslides in the capital and other parts of northern China. Torrential downpours from Storm Doksuri over the weekend caused Beijing to receive the equivalent of July's annual rainfall in just 3 days. The death toll is expected to rise and the city has issued a red alert, the most severe weather warning in its 4-tier system. Subways have been closed, flights delayed, and tourist attractions, including the Forbidden City, are off limits. Businesses have also been ordered to allow employees to work from home. Now, coup leaders in Niger have accused France on Monday of planning a military intervention to reinstate the ousted president, Mohamed Bazoum. They said Niger's fallen government had authorized the country's former colonial ruler to carry out strikes to free Bazoum. France has not confirmed or denied the allegation, instead saying that its focus is to guarantee the security of its nationals. This comes after the first photo of Bazoum since the coup was released. In it, the ousted leader is seen meeting with Chad's president for in-depth talks to find a peaceful resolution. Bazoum has been confined to the presidential palace since Wednesday, after his presidential guard forcefully took power. And finally, actor and comedian Paul Rubens, best known for his character Pee Wee Herman, has died at the age of 70. According to his publicist, Rubens died on Sunday following a 6-year battle with cancer. Rubens created and portrayed the popular 1980s character Pee Wee Herman, recognizable in a tight-fitting grey suit, a red bow tie, and an iconic laugh. He appeared in several films, including the 1985 flick Pee-wee's Big Adventure and the Emmy Award-winning TV series Pee-wee's Playhouse. But the character was put aside for over 2 decades after Rubens was arrested for indecent exposure in 1991. Although the charges were dropped, the incident ruined his reputation. Rubens eventually brought Pee-wee back in 2010 for a Broadway show, and in 2016 for a Netflix movie. Matthew Ashley, Arirang News.
Good afternoon. A wave of deep, blasting heat continues to sweep Korea, with temperatures to rise a bit higher than Monday, with most parts under a heat wave warning. Those of us in the capital area should have a strong umbrella handy. It looks like it will rain heavily this afternoon, with up to 60 millimeters expected. The rest of the southern regions are under strong sunshine. Highs in most parts are hovering around 35 degrees Celsius this afternoon. Take care during this massive heat wave. Now, we are looking at frequent passing rain this week, while the intense heat stays with us through next week. Now, giving you an update on the sixth typhoon of the season, Kanun. Right now, the typhoon is passing through the coast on the southeast of Okinawa, Japan. It could gradually change its course northeastward by the end of the week, possibly heading towards the Korean peninsula. So please keep updated with the latest weather information. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions. That ends Tuesday's afternoon newscast, but do stay with us for our panel session coming up next. Thank you for now.